clearly not from around here. I've flown in from Sydney, Australia to be part of this fantastic event, and I'm stoked to be here. And really, thank you. I should fly more often. This is great.
Well, I'm Axelle, not as impressive. I'm from Belgium. Not so far. Also here, I'm not from here. So yeah, I'm also very, very thrilled to be here. And I saw this morning, I don't know if you were in my session this morning, I saw this is a very unusual audience that has a much higher adoption rate of drawing than any other business people I normally know. So my expectations are there, so.
Absolutely, yeah. I was in for, who was in for Axelle's session? Did anyone see that session? Yeah, a few of you, great.
So many, okay.
So to echo that question, do you want to ask the same question?
Yeah, maybe I can ask a question. Just by show of hands, who is still drawing today as a form of communication? Drawing, yeah.
On the computer.
No, I just have to say much higher than
Well, certainly after this morning, maybe you can be putting your hand up, say, yeah, I draw at work, you know, and that's certainly our aim. We want to break down the barriers in general between you and succeeding in using drawing as your superpower at work, because it is a superpower of thinking, of showing, of having better ideas, of getting all that lovely stuff that's in here out into the world. That's in general, but specifically, here's what we're going to be doing today. We want to show you 3 ways that you can draw a strategy on a page. And actually, should we just start with, strategy is a big word. Do you want to shout out a word or two? What do you think of when you think of strategy?
roadmap.
Yeah. Vision.
Execution.
Execution. Did someone say execution?
Value.
Sorry?
Procedure.
Precision.
Procedure.
Oh, procedure.
Value.
Value.
Implementation.
Process, maybe.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like there's an altitude here, like there's strategy. Come on in, find a seat, find somewhere with some paper and a marker. Strategy is, I think, higher in altitude. It's about the strategic choices we make. And then there's procedure and there's the more tactical stuff of how we execute on that strategy. Both are important, aren't they? And both are tightly related, and we're going to touch on that. Yeah.
Big picture.
Big picture, exactly. Yeah. You know, when people talk about, hey, we need to get on the same page. That's kind of, you know, the big picture. What's the same thing that we need to all have in our heads, perhaps before we get going? Yeah.
Long-term thinking. Long-term vision.
Long-term vision, exactly. Yeah. We need to know the short-term tasks and milestones, but we need the long-term vision as well. So there's a duality there, isn't there? All right. So with that in mind, yeah,
a kind of unique business model.
Yes. And that word model is very important as well. And we'll touch on that as well. Thank you.
By its nature, isn't strategy more tactical in nature?
That's a great question. Like, did you ask, is strategy more tactical? Yeah. I think, well, there's lots to say about that. I think we could spend all morning just on that. I think one person's strategy is another person's tactic. Like there's an order of work. Elliot Jacques, is anyone any strategy heads in that? Elliot Jacques, anyone know? Talks about 7 orders of work. It's got to do with the kinds of business decisions you need to make. Are they short term? Like, do I need to fix something today that's right in front of me? Like, that's level 1. All the way up the levels. Middle management is about level 4. C-level is about level 6 and 7. We're talking about long-term vision. What is the system at play that we need to pull the levers of this system to execute well? So if you want to Google that later, Elliot Juck's orders of work. But we digress. We better move on. Look, we've got a lot in store for you. We're going to stuff a lot of value into this next 53 minutes for you. But what we'd like to start with is getting you talking with the person next to you or perhaps behind you, and spend a few minutes thinking, well, why do many strategies fail? Because they do. So have a talk about that with your partner. Just pick someone perhaps you probably don't know before, or someone that you do. They may be behind you. Why do strategies fail? Trying to know your ideas and the things you talked about. Why do strategies sometimes fail?
There's no buy-in.
No buy-in. Great one, yeah.
I think the strategy need to revisit every often, and then when reiteration, like, because companies think this is like a set on stone, and I think that's where is the challenge, because you have to, revisit very often to see if there is how the market situation.
So it might fail if it's not revisited?
Yeah.
It's not communicated well, so.
It's not communicated well.
But if nobody understands it and makes it their own, it fails.
Could be the best strategy in the world, couldn't it? Yeah.
Lack of clarity and disassociation with business value that you're trying to go for.
Nice one, yes.
So strategy is sometimes confused with vision or the plan, and strategy is none.
Oh, man. Yes, that's right. A bag of goals is not a strategy. That might come as a surprise to a lot of people, yes.
Strategy is an ongoing process. You cannot put a strategy one time. You have to keep on working.
Yes. I love this crowd. Oh, this is awesome. Sorry, yes.
Yeah, it's just being the strategy has to be relevant to be significant and significant to be relevant.
Oh, I love that. It's got to be relevant to be significant.
Yeah,
And significant to be relevant.
that's right.
Yeah. For whom? You know?
Well, for customers, because if sometimes in the company, even though you have a majority of hands voting for that, when you apply that in the real world, in some cases it doesn't work.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of people can get high on their idea of the world, like their model, their system. That may not be the case for the people for whom that system is meant to serve, yeah.
Yeah, either not well thought through or poor execution.
Not well thought through and poor execution. Just on execution, I know it came up before and I was just talking with Axelle. Sometimes, and I know it's very, very hot right now in some circles to think, well, you know what? We don't have time to pontificate with a lot of strategy. We just need to ship and we will learn as we go, a la lean. So I can, through all this, I'm sure you've seen this. Anyone seen the lean startup cycle, build, measure, learn? Familiar to anyone?
Yeah.
Very executional. You'll learn a lot. The choice to work that way is a strategy, rather than sitting in a room for a long time, coming up with a big strategy and a big plan, and then staying fixated to a plan. We had another hand up here somewhere. Oh.
Not creating the value desired.
Not creating the value that we desire from that strategy. Great one. Yeah. There's a very significant link between value and strategy. I better move on if that's okay. I knew, Axelle, this was going to be a very, very, very smart, good-looking bunch of people. And, as I said, we can discuss this all morning, but we want to get you drawing. Okay, so here's some things. This is from an HBR article recently visualized and summarized, by the way, of why some strategies might fail. And as you said, they can be too vague, they're not clear enough. Sometimes we pack too much in. Sometimes the significance of quote about being relevant and significant, it just doesn't land. Sometimes it's not holistic. It's only looking at one piece of the puzzle and not the whole system. Sometimes it's too short term. Sometimes it's weighed down or held back by too much legacy thinking. But the ones we really want to focus on, because as much as Axelle and I want to fix all the things, all the problems to do with strategy. When it comes to visualizing, we're having a visual of your strategy. It really solves these problems of being too vague, irrelevant to the right people, or not resonant to the right people, and having too much.
No, I want to add something on that.
Yep.
What was I going to add? No. So I don't know, Einstein said once, if you can't picture it, you can't understand it, or I can't understand it. And I think even if after today you would decide never to draw again, or at least not to draw for other people, it's really important to try to visualize what you're going to tell about people. Because if you can't draw it, you probably also can't explain it, and people won't understand you. So if you're talking about buying and clarity and everything, if people talk to us and they talk about their strategy and we can't make one picture of it, it's not good enough. If we can't do it, no one can't, and no one will understand. So it's really a challenge for yourself to try to do that, even if you are not going to show it to other people. That's something I want to say.
Was anyone here for the last session, like the last workshop here, about draw to connect? I know one of the points there was, look, it's like, don't try to be perfect with what you draw. And what we'll be drawing here, it's very simple. And it's the sort of drawing that you can get away with a lot. Please do come in if there's space. If not, feel free to perch around. Make sure you can still draw on something and with something. Take photos, of course. So a visual strategy, just echoing what Axelle is saying, it explains things in ways that you don't need another PowerPoint presentation. You don't need to book another meeting. It shows clear direction and priority. It lands better. It's more relevant and more resonant with the right audience. That's what we're going for. Okay, now I know we said before there's a duality between strategy and execution. Sometimes there's a duality between process and product. And what I mean by that is a lot of the time when we think of formulating strategy, that's when we're in meetings and we're coming up with that long-term vision. We're coming up with ideas and we're prioritizing the ideas. It's stuff we do together, yeah, and that's important. But sometimes we think of strategy as just our product, like our vision statement, our value proposition, our set of strategic objectives, and so on. And sometimes the two are very disconnected. I think someone mentioned before, it might make sense in the room or in the Zoom, but then you take it outside of that small group and it doesn't land, people don't understand it. When you draw it, back to what Axelle was saying, when people understand it better, it can connect process and product because it's both. Like we still need both.
And also, if you do the exercise with more people and you start drawing during the process, you will see, and I promise you, people are much more engaged because no one wants to be left behind. We were talking about the 20% of the people yesterday in the room that defined the conversation. It was in one of the workshops. I don't know if you heard it. I was drawing, so I heard it. But so those 20%, it changes completely when you start drawing during a strategic session because people see the words coming on paper and they want their words also on the paper. So people speak up much better. So that's also very strong when you do it in the process.
Yes,
Yeah.
I like that. It really adds that dynamic aspect of strategy formulation as well as communication.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so what are we talking about when we talk about, before we get to that, switching streams a bit, getting ahead of myself. Another quick question to just shout out really. Many of you may already be using strategies on a page or rich pictures, things like that. Sometimes they rely on metaphors, sometimes they don't. But what kind of metaphors, in your experience, help us explain strategy? Any ideas there?
Are you looking for like frameworks or thoughts? So like strategic choice cascade, scenario planning, a bunch of things. Scenario planning, strategic choice cascade,
And what might that scenario plan look like? Is there like a real world object that it might look like?
Oh, from drawing perspective?
Yeah.
Like a ladder? Ladder?
A ladder.
Yeah.
Nice one. Yeah, a ladder. A ladder is a great metaphor that helps people understand a strategy, like it's a bunch of steps to take. Yeah, perfect example. Any other examples?
It's a rallying cry. A rallying cry.
A rally car.
No, a rallying cry.
Oh, a rallying cry. Yes. And what might that look like, do you think?
It's like we need to get to this place in the world and like our businesses need that. So like, get on the AI or deliver this moonshot idea or land on the moon.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. So notice there, like, I wanted to get a bit more information because we want to draw it. There we go. So now Axelle has enough information there to draw it. Yeah. Another example, yeah.
Storyboarding, so.
Storyboarding,
but-
yeah.
But confined storyboarding, so like a 3-panel storyboard or an 8-panel storyboard.
Yep.
So you have to be concise.
Can you give an example of what might be on that storyboard to explain the strategy?
So it can be anything from, if we're talking about a product strategy, it might be from the user's perspective, draw a storyboard of how they might interact with a change in the product.
So I might have a picture of the customer.
It might have a picture of the customer, might have a picture of the product, it might have pictures of aspirational customers. It can be.
Yep. Yeah. So it's something that, a storyboard is a great format to bring that strategy or bring that experience to life. And the things in those frames are what do the trick. And it could be, as you say, the product, the customer. Those are the things that we're kind of looking at right now. Yeah.
A map with directions.
Yeah.
A map with directions.
Yeah. A map with directions.
A tree.
Oh, yes. Yeah, tree.
To the main structure, to what all it can bear on, so where all it can grow. But the main structure becomes your main part of this idea, right, and how it grows across.
Nice one. Thank you. Yeah.
I had a tree, but I would extend it a little bit and add roots to it, which are very deep, that shows.
See what you're going to say?
And see what happened there. Like what happened then is exactly what Axelle was saying before. Like that dynamic that happens when you draw something, and that makes you go, oh, in my head, the way I think of this strategy with that metaphor is, I'm more worried about what's going on under the ground, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. One more. Yeah.
A recipe to make something.
Oh.
Wow.
Yes, recipe to make something. Yeah. I gotta ask. I'm just curious, what would that recipe be for?
Pizza. Biryani.
Biryani strategy, I love it. Now, I want to do a template, or maybe, sir, this is your task. You could somehow come up with a template. It's a strategy on a page that uses biryani and the ingredient. Oh, love it.
Maybe one more, there were like many hands, one word, flow chart.
Horizons? So
Horizons, yeah, okay, great. Okay, I want to say so, yeah. Funnel? A funnel, yeah. Well, I want to say something about all these things. If you think about a tree, what kind of feeling does it bring inside of you?
grounding, stability.
Grounding, inspirational, growth, safe, growth, like. Yeah, life, yeah, indeed. What does this do with you? A ladder? What do you feel with the ladder?
Step by step.
Yeah, okay, but also unstable sometimes, dangerous.
I see your ladder.
Yeah.
Oh.
What does that say?
One step at a
Right as a ladder, it looks like a bridge.
Yeah. And it's important to think about that because Or like a moonshot can be very appealing to some people, but very scary for others. And when you choose a metaphor, it has an impact on how people will perceive your strategy. And very often, like I said, I've been drawing in thousands of meetings and very often strategic meetings, all things that can't leave the room. Very often, for some reason, they choose mountains. But I don't know if I didn't, but did someone climb the Kilimanjaro, for instance, or the Mount Everest, or any other large, even the Mont Blanc in Europe, it's Mont Blanc, yes? Is it hard or is it easy?
It's a trick.
It's a trick, yeah, okay. It needs a lot of preparation, it's a risk, it's hard.
everyone.
It's hard for everyone, you really have to be like.
And also, like, you don't spend much time on the top. You spend more time on the top.
Speaking both of them. Indeed, so think about that, when you choose a metaphor, how is the situation of your company? Is it very dangerous? Is it very risky? Is it going to be really hard? Yeah, don't choose a tree, choose the mountain. But on the other hand, if you want to create a safe space where everyone feels like, oh yeah, I'm going to feel grounded here, don't choose that mountain because it's not going to happen. So think about that when you choose a metaphor for your strategy. Yeah, you want to add something?
I was gonna sneak.
Oh yeah, you have like mountains, no, clouds and mountains, yeah.
Raining.
What about a mesa? Like that feels better.
Mesa?
Plateau, mesa.
Yeah, that feels much better, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Like that?
Or it can be here, I think it means here, like, you can actually stand on the top, here in fall. So anyway, just to show you that you can have all kind of metaphors, but they define how people will perceive your story, so that's very important. Okay, up to you again.
Thanks. And by the way, like, do please feel free to draw as Axelle is doing, like, copy these. It'll help you remember, and you can be proud of what you draw. Say, hey, I drew today. It's great. And you can share it on LinkedIn and people love it. No, you think I'm joking. People love it when you share what you draw online. It doesn't matter how dumb you think it is. Other people don't see it the way that you do. They see it being much, much better. All right. So when we talk about one strategy on a page, what are we talking about? I thought it's fair to throw in a couple of examples before we then show you how to draw it. So here's one I did for a group of program managers at Atlassian, an Australian software company. Anyone heard of Atlassian?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone use Jira?
Yes.
Not my fault. I didn't work on Jira, I worked on other stuff. But as you can see from here, I'm going to start on this top left corner, because that's where, for a lot of people, not all, for a lot of people in Western audiences will start. Notice there's some very quick notes there about current state, what's going on right now. For example, too reactive to product manager demands. And on the other side, this is where those program managers wanted to be. Like, this is their vision, if you like. Like, we want a world where we are an in-demand, clairvoyant center of excellence. Love that for them. How are we going to get there? Well, we're going to build a bridge. So see how there's a metaphor going on here? But there's a couple of things that came out of the workshop of what that means to them. They have to remove barriers. They have to build supports ahead so that the bridge knows where to go. And this is based on their experience. Quick tip, if you're drawing a strategy on a page, the more strategic things, good to have at the top of the page, the more tactical things down the bottom half. Same as if it's a timeline, things that happened before, over here on the left, where we are now, where we want to be. I thought you might be going that way. And notice here, the more tactical things, we've got some behaviors. Here's some stuff that we know works. Here's what we want to put in the bin. Like, here's some behaviors that aren't useful for us anymore. Axelle, I believe you had a question about this?
Yeah. It's, you see a lot of drawings, but there are at least as many and even more text words. And that's crucial. So never think that people can understand a visual only by the drawing. You always have to add text. That's crucial. But if you look at this page, what's the first thing you see? First thing, remove barriers. Yeah. We call that the glance. So when I visualize strategies for clients, I always ask, if someone is like having 2 seconds and they walk by your strategy, what do you want them to see? Well, in this case, I think it's remove barriers and build supports. That's the first thing they want people to remember. So when you create a strategy on a page, always think about that. What's the key message I want people to remember? Because that key message has to pop out and has to be supported by the drawing. So that's crucial. Even on a PowerPoint slide. The title very often pops out. That's very often not the key message. So just tip. And then we have 2 other levels. It's called the scan. So what can you scan easily if you look at this drawing? What words do you scan easily? How to, yeah, so that's possibly a scan. And then you have the read. That's what you're going to read when you have a little bit more time. So those 3 levels, when you visualize something, take that into account. Because if it's all the same level, the eye doesn't know where to go, and it makes it very brain unfriendly to process. Okay? Yeah.
So when we have the strategy, right? Most of the time we don't have a recipe or playbook to reach the destination. So does it involve some good amount of research that we need to capture in that figure too?
You mean that it has to be
some research to get the playbook? A lot of times I don't have a recipe.
Oh, could be.
Yes.
Yeah, it's, and very often, because you very often don't know what's going to come to reach your end goal. But maybe there is something that is typical about how you wanna evolve in that strategy. That could be, I think that's happening here. Remove barriers, that's clearly what they wanna do. Maybe it's not clear, I was not there, so I don't know. Maybe it's not clear what the barriers exactly are, but they know they're going to remove barriers. That's probably something that was crucial in what they have experienced from the. It doesn't have to be too specific, I think. Yeah.
Thank you.
And by the way, here's where it's a reminder that we don't have to be fixated on strategy as a product. Like a 1-page strategy like this, it's still process over product. And by that, I mean, I could draw something like that and have some big yawning gaps. You know, it can be incomplete, because when people see something that's incomplete, what do? Yeah, like they try to fill it in themselves, and they ask questions, and it stimulates a productive conversation, and it also I think encourages I think a great 3-letter sentence that for me is a great sign of modern leadership, and those 3 letters are, sorry, not 3 words, and those 3 words are I don't know. We don't know. We don't know. Let's go find out. Let's do that research. You know? So that's 3 more words. Let's find out. So strategy on a page can indeed highlight the gaps, and we don't need to fill them with assumptions. We can fill them with facts. We can fill them with a choice that we're going to make. We can fill them to say, well, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to measure it, and we'll find out, and then we'll revisit that strategy. Someone up there said to revisit. Right, in interest of time.
I had to kick your ass if you were taking too long, so I'm doing that.
Yes, very good. So we'll go through this next one. So now it's time to get drawing. Here's the 3 examples based on what Axelle and I have been talking about. So I'll draw them here, and I do encourage you to draw them so that you'll need to have these 3 in front of you for the activity that you'll do at the end. So here's the first one, from to why. Now I'll start with a frame, because it's always nice to have a boundary. And you'll notice as I'm drawing, there's really not a lot of the pictures that you might have been wondering about. Like, am I going to draw people and buildings and icons? Probably not. What this sort of drawing does is it visually organizes all the information. The author, Stephen Covey, he said, minds are for having ideas, not holding them. And as leaders, we need to give away for people to get the ideas out of their head and into a space that is organized. So that's what we're doing here. So what this template is all about is architecting some space. Well, we want to go from here to our destination. And that's what you can see in this one here. And the why is the strategic argument. Why do we need to go from here to here? As far as what goes on in the boxes, it might simply be some bullet points, short. It might be some kind of metric. Perhaps that, oh, sorry, not metric, a measure, like something that you are measuring at a certain amount, and we're not happy with where that is. We'll be happy when it's over there. And so whatever these bullet points are, I would say it's contrasted with what we would rather it be. So that's the kind of strategic path. And then when we get tactical, now we can think about, well, what behaviours do we need to get to this future state? Or maybe what team? So here's a great little glyph to try. Do you know the McDonald's logo? Yeah. Imagine, well, don't imagine it, draw it. Draw the McDonald's logo and then draw another one. And then 3 circles. And then that's your team. Oh, quick hack. Oval. Meeting. A box with another figure. Hybrid meeting. So here, now we can think, okay, so for all of you who are wondering, where are the strategic initiatives that we need? Well, they can go over here, you know. If this is our vision, we need some meat to say, well, what does that vision look like? What are we aiming for? And so we can have those here, however you might want to represent them. You can also throw in a metaphor, a bit like what I've done here, where we need to build a bridge to get from here to here. What might that bridge look like? Or risk might be important. What might I draw in the water that represents risk?
Shark.
Yes. You think, oh man, don't make me draw a shark. Sharks are hard. I can't even think about what a shark looks like. I've got to draw a bendy triangle. People see that and they go, ooh, that's a shark. If you don't believe me, put it on LinkedIn and say, what is this? And they'll say, it's a shark. So now notice it's very simple. Does it contain all of the strategy? No, it doesn't need to. By the way, does this replace the 80 slide deck, like the 80 slide deck? No. I mean, I would hope it would trim some of those slides, but it's complementary. Like Axelle was saying, it's something at a glance.
Last week I was drawing for Gartner, which I often do, and it was about change and strategy and so on always. and resistance. And they said, if you have stakeholders who are really resistant in listening to you, don't give them like 8 pages to read because they won't do it. Give them like 1 page, something very visual that at least triggers them to get to know more, and then they will go further. So they were basically making promotion for us without knowing. So yeah, so that's, make it simple, and then people will maybe be interested to look further into the company. Yeah.
I understand, from the why, how have you defined the why? Sorry, how have you defined where you wanna go?
Yeah, so that's mostly the result of a process, something we do together with the.
This is more sort of, we take the existing vision and then you say how you go there.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That's strategy.
Yeah.
This pattern can be really important if you're in change management. If you need to communicate change, and bet your bottom dollar, no matter who you are in an organization, you want to know why we're making this change. And so this is the zone, if you like, where you can show that. And it might mean love from customers, customer success. How might you visualize that? It might be like, why do we need to do this? Because we've got to expand into another geography.
Question. Do you have any guidance or frameworks around when not to use, when not to overdo visualization? What kind of setup this really works well? What kind of setups this don't go well? I think it's like, this is like so attractive, it's easy to overdo it. And it's very important not to.
Yeah, I would say definitely early. And I think, you got an answer? Yeah, it's a good question. Is there a way to overdo it?
I don't see a reason. I don't see a way of overdoing it. The only thing is when you don't overdo it, people will appreciate it much more because it's more unique, and it feels like when I'm coming in the room, people know it's important stuff. I'm there, so it's an important meeting. If it's not important, I'm not there. So it could be strategically a choice to visualize when it's really important. Yeah. So the opposite of what people are thinking, because sometimes people think it's childish. I won't be taken seriously because it's drawn. It's the opposite. When I come in, of course, they have to pay me a lot, so it's important anyway. And it's not a lot, but no, you have to pay me. So it's an investment, so it's important. So it could be a choice, but I've done it in so many ways, in all kind of situations. I never had one moment that I was thinking, this is not appropriate, you know? Yeah. So it's some companies have the culture of always doing it. Yeah, that's really strong.
If it's okay, if I can add one thing, right? So we have used this in the initial phases, but we don't take it to board members, just saying.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's our borderline.
Yeah, and for me, it's the opposite. When they hire me, it's for the boards, because, yeah, otherwise they don't pay me for that. If it's not high enough, you know? Yeah, so it can be really important. By the way, your question about, I don't know, Martin. So like the first one is very focused on the change you want to see. The last one, but then we'll come to that, is much more on the directions, much more on the why, what you were talking. So it can be smart to choose another kind of framework if you want to focus on the why rather than on the.
No, correct, this is more how to get where I want to go.
Yeah.
Where do I actually want to go?
Yeah, definitely.
That's one, yeah. And each of these three, and by the way, there's loads of these. We could go all day underwater on this, but we wanted to pick three that were very different. This one's great for change. The next one, the strategy pyramid, this is really good to show the model or the system that you're dealing with. Is anyone here in product management or product strategy? Fair few of you, yeah? Okay. Sometimes it's really easy to get lost in the JIRA tickets about, what's going on with the product and where's the roadmap at and what's this team working on and what customer metric are we following and how's it going? So this is something that lets you keep all the pieces connected. And it's the good old pyramid stack. And you can start with just drawing a pyramid with 4 tiers, 4 levels. Now, as we know, we can intuit that looking at a pyramid structure, the thing at the bottom, like that's the base, like that's what needs to support everything. And as we move up, well then there's less to support and it gets more strategic, more conceptual. Now at the top here, we've got the purpose. What's the purpose of the product? Now, the product might be, I'm not going to keep going on about Jira. I'll pick a different, like Drawify, for example. Drawify, the product that Axelle is CEO of, it gives you visualization at speed. Is that right? Actually, I should let you answer that question.
Yeah, I just tried. It's good.
It's good enough. So I could draw like a nice sort of go fast arrow, and then perhaps a thought balloon with a tick like, I understand. So it helps your team understand what you want to communicate faster, for example. You might not want to draw. You could write it, but the point is it's got a home in this map. And then we've got a set of benefits. These are how your customers benefit from your product. These are the things you want your customers to tell others about. Again, they can be words or they can be pictures. I'll hurry along a bit here. And then in the third one, you've got experience. Does anyone work with journey maps?
Yeah.
Yeah? Oh, a lot of you. Okay, great. So if you were to draw the essence of your journey map for your product or your service, that's where it is. So I could draw a simple figure here. Off for a walk on that journey map. There might be some significant moments. They sign up, they upgrade, maybe they invite more people. Experience. And experience is how they get to these benefits. Why do we have these benefits? Because this is the purpose. And the base is the part that most of us will be concerned about, and these are the features. This part of my product, these features, really important to ensure that sign up happens more often. If something's wrong here, there's churn here. I don't like that. These features, really important to prompt people to upgrade, to stoke that need to upgrading. So do you see where this is going? Does it replace a roadmap? No. But it helps you, especially if you're in product management, it helps you communicate all the things in a really simple way. And it works really well. You can start bottom up. You can talk about why are we prioritizing this feature? Oh, because it's really important in this part of the experience so that customers experience this benefit. And it works top down. We've got a ton of products. Like at Atlassian, we had heaps of products. Does anyone have multiple products in their organization? Yeah, no, it happens a lot, right? You need to sort of have a way to coordinate that. So start up here. What's the purpose of the business? And then how does each product deliver on that purpose? And so I could get really wild and crazy and have another pyramid hanging on the side so people can really see now how these things come together. I'm going to throw another one at you because of time. I told you we'd be stuffing a lot in. Can I throw another one at you? Yes, right. So as I said, this one is great when you need to map a system to show how all the parts operate together. But this third one is the road trip canvas. And this one's really good when you're working with a team to say, okay, I get we need to change. I get why. I get the how. I get the who, like that's me right there. But as a team, how are we going to do this together? So that's where the road trip canvas comes in. And it's like the team is in a car, or again, it's nice to let the team pick what kind of car. Maybe it's a combi van, I don't know.
Porsche.
A Porsche. Now, I'm in America. What side is the steering wheel? I'm used to drawing it there. If I drew it there, you'd be going. Yeah, so yeah. Right. This is the wheel. Who's driving the bus? You know, who else is in the bus or the Porsche?
Not many people.
But in essence, as you'll notice, all of these templates, they help you with different zones for different kinds of information. So this is your zone for roles and responsibilities. What else we got in a car? We've got a glove box. So here's where, if we follow the metaphor, what are we taking with us on this trip? So what's something that we should take with us if this was going to be the best road trip of all time? Snacks.
Music.
Water,
Yeah.
music,
All
snacks. There you go. Right? See how quickly. By the way, that's an awesome icebreaker to do. If you're going to do like a big team meeting, offsite, that kind of thing, ask them. Okay, we're all going on a road trip. What should we bring? And see what people come up with. And then say, why is that important? Why are snacks important? Why is music important? And before you know it, you've got a bunch of principles. And the same thing applies here. Whatever people say they're bringing with them, there's a reason why that's important. All right, someone said horizon before. Now we got the horizon. Now we got the road. He's still drawing. Are you drawing?
Yep.
Bit of scenery. I love the trees here. Some trees. You can have fun with it, yeah? Like localize it. Let the team perhaps draw it. Like what's important to them about where they're going. And we need some road signs, don't we, to follow the metaphor? So on this side, we're going to have, how will we know we're headed in the right direction?
Signboards.
Maps.
Distance.
GPS.
Arrows.
Yes. So there's got to be evidence along the way, like your metric will hit a certain figure. Okay, so yeah, we know we're tracking in the right direction. It might be milestones. Make sense? And over here, and so again, it can be bullet points, succinct, simple. And over on this side, we've got warning signs, like risks. So you might want to let your team think about and write in that zone, like what are the risks that we need to mitigate along the way. So before you know it, you've got, I suppose, a map of the most significant pieces of information that we need to know. Right. Now, I just threw a lot at you there. Exercise.
Yeah, if you have still 5 minutes.
Let's do it.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
So for the next 5 minutes, Axelle and I really want you to try to kind of grok this and apply it, have fun with it. And so what we'd like you to do is grab a fresh piece of paper, choose one of these templates, or indeed use this as inspiration for something that you'd like to draw instead. Like, I'm really intrigued by a biryani recipe canvas. Like, I think that was wrong. Like, that was great. But use these as inspiration or copy these. And we know that there's been a bit of a theme in the conference yesterday about improving feedback culture. This came up a bit. So Axelle and I thought we need something that we've all heard about to apply. So your task, should you choose to accept, is draw your own strategy about improving feedback culture in your situation. Like, that might be in your company, in your team, in your family. Use one of these. You don't have to think about it too hard, but just for the purpose of the exercise, use one and draw it as a template and then start filling in the gaps. Make sense?
Don't wait too long to start because you only have 5 minutes.
Right,
So
I'll set a timer,
Yeah.
5 minutes and go.
In theory, you still have 50 seconds, but we were thinking maybe there are some questions you want to have answered. Any questions in the room? Yeah.
I'm putting in a lot of words. How do I talk to not putting too much words to using?
Yeah, so not too many words. Yeah, so it's always a nice balance to have a few words, but the words with meaning. Like what you see very often in strategies, visual strategies, is like communication. It doesn't say anything. So, but you can't even do like 5 sentences. That's too much. So try to find a few words that add all the meaning you want to add. I don't know if you know 6-word stories. If not, you have to. So try to make like mini stories with a few words that tell everything. Yeah.
By the way, like a first iteration of a paragraph is fine. The second iteration, you look at it and go, okay, how might I say that in less words? And then the third iteration, you're down to about 6 words. Yeah, you can iterate.
How do you maintain chronology? What I mean by that is when you see a strategy, how do you maintain some sort of a chronology to say the sequence of thoughts and process while explaining? Because it could clutter quite a bit when you see it for the first time.
Yeah.
What are some techniques that you?
Yeah, that's hierarchy. So that's what I said in the beginning. You can do a lot with the text. So you have to make sure something is really jumping into your attention. And then you have several layers. So some things are bigger, some things are smaller, so that the eye can choose where to go to and then go broader. That's really important. If everything is on the same page, it's really hard. So that's, you can do that with size, you can do that with contrast, you can do that with colors. So if you have like certain pieces in the same color, the eye will jump from one piece to the other. So that's something you can do. Yeah, yeah.
I was wondering, sometimes I get confused between why and to. For example, we want to get happier, be more cooperative. This can be two, but also if we put, because we want to be happier, then it can be why. Then how do we?
Another way to think about it is, what would happen if we don't do this? So current state, here's where we are now. Future state, here's where we want to be. This is what the future looks like for us. And the why is like the reason why we want that, like the reason why we want customers to be happy or for improving feedback cultures so that it's a culture of more psychological safety. But another way to think about it is, well, what will happen if we don't do this? So it's like the opposite.
And this is why.
Yeah.
And how about two? Because two is also to make it more cooperative or more happier, more sophistication.
A great one to clarify is think about the words you're using and thinking. If they're verbs, they're more tactical. If they're nouns, it's more vision. I think I see a future of this. It's a bunch of nouns. But if you're having to say, well, we need to do this and we want this and we're going to have to do this, that's going to be more here. And you still need to explain to someone, why do we need to do that? Yeah, so it's the reason why.
We don't want you to miss out on lunch.
Yes.
I can imagine there are much more questions, but no, we have a table the whole day still in the pavilion with where the drawings are. You can always meet us, ask your questions. And oh, about that table, there is a box. We are collecting professor feedback because we're making our drawings to thank them. And that drawings have your feedback. So please go to that table and put your feedback about the professor. Next to that, if you want some inspiration about templates to do things like this, go also to Drawify. There are like hundreds of templates to do strategies, visualization.
I love it.
That's it, right? Or something else? That's it. I hope you enjoy it.